Hello again. I'm John Pulaski, and this is a program put together by the nonprofit called OurMontana. We take care of parks, trails, lakes, bodies of water, you name it. Anything to do with the outdoors kind of falls under our stewardship, if you will. And today I'm really excited because not only do I have an old friend as the guest, but he is an incredible talent. Gary Little is with me, and Gary is an artist extraordinaire as far as his capabilities and abilities, and we'll be showing you some of that here shortly. In fact, maybe we could start by, Robbie, if you could take a shot at what we're going to be showing you and get in a little bit more. This, now I know it looks like a painting maybe to you folks at home, but it isn't. It is actually three-dimensional. It is made out of terracotta clay, and Gary is resourceful and energetic enough that when he goes out to collect the clay, he goes to the mountains that he portrays and puts that together. So that's kind of what we're starting with. We'll talk about his work here, but he also has an incredible thing that he's put together called a glove box guide to the mountains of Montana. Am I saying that?
That's
right
correct.
Or correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me shut up and let you get started. Montana boy, right?
Yeah, born and raised.
And where all this got started, if I remember right, just to kind of maybe dazzle the folks a little bit, was because of car sickness. Is that right?
That is right.
Okay, with that, I'll be quiet, and Gary, you can tell how the inspiration came for doing these, and you have virtually all of the mountain ranges in Montana, right?
I have most of the ranges. I have all the ranges that carry the Continental Divide.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, and more than one picture of each in a lot of cases.
Okay.
So the more magnificent, the more I did. I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, and you have some that are a lot bigger than this too, if I recall.
I do. I have.
And
Yeah, I have actually have 16.5-foot mural of the Beartooth Front from Columbus. So, and it has all the peaks in it, and it's accurate.
It domiciled? I don't mean to run off track here, but
actually, it was in the Beartooth Museum in Columbus for about, I don't know, half a year, and it found a home at the Beartooth Grill in Laurel. Oh. And they just love it. So.
Great.
Yeah,
well,
so
if you folks get a chance to get out, take a look.
Yeah.
But I'll be quiet. I said you riding down the road and somebody has car sickness, and that's where it kind of started.
Yeah, it's one of my big brothers would always get car sick, and my mom would say, well, look at the mountains, because they weren't moving, and if he looked at the mountains, then he wouldn't get car sick, because, you know, family of 4 boys, one gets car sick, everybody gets car sick. So my mom was trying everything, and so I was just looking at the mountains. I was doing what my mom told me to do, and I guess I was looking a lot closer than my brothers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then it got to the point where I would say to my dad, I'd say, well, what mountains are those? And my dad, I didn't know until later, was making up names. So, and his favorite was that he would go to was Old Baldy. He'd say, oh, that's Old Baldy. And it turns out there is a lot of Old Baldies in Montana. Man, in fact, there's in the Big Belt Mountains, there's 2.
Really?
There's one on each end of the range.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
great. So that led to you getting into art, and how did that kind of evolve?
Well, I've always I was always drawing art, and when I was a little kid, my brothers were off doing something, and I was drawing. So I was drawing everything around, you know, and so I think I was destined to be an artist. It was just my interest, and I had done a illustrated, syndicated column for the Montana Newspaper Association on Lewis and Clark.
Oh.
So, and after I was done with that, they said, well, what else could you do? Lewis and Clark lasted 2 years through Montana, and so, well, what else could you do? And I got to thinking, what else could I do? And one day I was working on a painting, and I was of the mountains, of course, and I was trying to get it just right, and I muttered to myself, I could sculpt this easier than I could paint it. And I stood back from my canvas, and I went, I should try that. So it took me a couple of years to actually come up with some kind of product that was, worthy.
Yeah.
But in 2006, I started doing the sculptures of the mountains, and I have not turned back. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Make more mountains.
When I get done with Montana, then I'll move on. I've already done one of the Tetons, which are spectacular too, and but Montana's mountains are first because they're the ones that I love and know, and I found out I've had my art in galleries all over Montana, and what I found out from that endeavor is that people don't know their mountains. So they don't know them visually. They might know them from a map, they might know their favorite mountains, but the mountains in general is such a huge, broad, bit of information that when I went to the state library and talked to them about it, and they just looked at me and said, good luck. Good luck with that project. It's huge. No one's ever tried it before. So this is...
Well, it's a first then.
Yeah, this is my attempt at teaching people the mountains of Montana.
Okay. Well, then, as you did the clay work and the painting of those things, another idea popped in your head, right?
Right.
Which led
Right.
to another product that he has available, and we'll talk about that and how you can obtain one before the program is done. But why don't you show us a little bit of that?
Okay. Well, it actually is. The title is Glovebox Guide to Recognizing the Mountains of Montana, and what it is it's a pictorial field guide. So, in other words, if you go to the spot that I tell you in the guide, and you look in the particular direction, you will find the same view, and it will have the mountains labeled. So for the first time ever, you can identify the mountains. What a topo map does is it gives you a top-down view. So you're looking straight from outer space, and you're looking down on a mountain, which isn't necessarily the best way to identify it.
Sure.
So this gives you that side profile picture. And it's made from, the cover is made from recycled maps of Montana. I just thought I'd do that because we're going paperless these days. So it was a good use of maps. And then the inside, you want me to show them the inside now too?
Well,
okay.
sure.
All right. Inside, basically, you have 2 booklets. I did it in booklet form so that I could staple it so that in a hot glove box of a car that the glue wouldn't melt. So there's 2 booklets, and also an identifier, a little booklet that helps you identify the peaks. So when you're looking through this book, and I'll show you just the front cover, the cover is actually a working cover. So that map on the front isn't just for looks, it's actually guides you to what mountain you want to look at. So it's got cities on there, and you can say, okay, well, I'm looking at a mountain that's south and west of Billings, and so what mountain would that be? And then you can look in here and see that that might be the Beartooth Mountains, and so you'll see a number on the map and be able to go right into the guide. This is of the this one is the booklet for the North and Western ranges, and it starts out with the Anaconda Range, which is, I think, one of the most beautiful.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So, and I don't know how we zoom in on that, but
Well, yeah.
did you want to try and zoom in on it?
Yeah, I was.
Were you trying to?
Yep.
Okay. I'll hold it. It's going to be tricky.
Okay.
Hold on.
Whoop.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. So if you you see that there's on this one there's a huge view of Georgetown Lake, but cut into that photo is like 3 other photos from other angles of the mountains. And all of the pictures are shot from common roadways. So when you're driving around, you can actually identify the picture and then the peaks. And it works the other way too. If you before your trip, if you look through the book and you kind of familiarize yourself with it, you can find those views. So it's a pictorial field guide. It's not, you know, there's no numbers, there's no latitude and longitude. It's just where I'm at on what highway and what direction am I looking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's simpler than that. But basically, it gives you a shot at identifying the mountains in Montana, and all of the mountains in Montana. So my artwork, I don't have all of the mountains done yet. But in the field guide, before I published it, of course, you know, I made sure that they're all in there. So yeah.
So you can dazzle your friends, relatives, and neighbors by saying, let's go for a ride and I'm going to show you some stuff.
I have talked to many people about the mountains of Montana, and generally when I bring up my subject, they change the subject because there is just not that much information. You know, they don't know that much. I've had guys that work for the Forest Service. They know their spot from their observation tower perfectly, but they don't know any other mountains. They just know their mountains.
Where it is.
Everyone has their favorite mountains, and that's their home range, you know. So home on the range, like the song, and that is very true. People have their home range, and but here in Montana, I mean, we're named after mountains. That's the name of our state. That's our namesake, is mountains.
Mountains.
Yeah. So I just thought it would be nice, you know, to help people, just, you know, with a new interest.
Do that. Now, in a conversation not too long ago, we talked about the fact that you go and look at a set of mountains somewhere, but if you're at the wrong vantage point, a lot of times you miss. And tell the story about what happens out here when you try and see the tallest peak in Montana from the interstate.
Right. Okay. So from the rest area by Columbus, which is closed right now, but is you know, one of the more common places where you can see a beautiful picture on a clear day of the Beartooth Range. The tallest mountain that you see is actually the 2nd tallest mountain in Montana. And my friend, the map maker, Ralph Saunders, he comes from Columbus. He said, and I asked him one day, I said, Ralph, does anyone in Columbus know which mountain is which? And he said, Gary, I'd be willing to bet you that 99.95% of the people think that Mount Wood, the 2nd tallest mountain, is Granite Peak, which is the tallest mountain. And that's because it is 12 miles closer and visually looks so much bigger than any other mountain, but nestled in a notch just to the left, or as you're looking south to the east of Mount Wood is Granite Peak back in there, and it's the perfect tallest mountain because there are no trails to it. To climb it, you have to climb up on the froze-to-death plateau, which is actually, I have Granite Peak here.
Okay.
I think this is Granite Peak. And this is froze-to-death plateau. You have to climb off of the plateau down into the valley and then back up. So you lose 4,000 feet to go back down into the valley and just to come back up to climb that mountain. So it's the descent and ascent of Granite Peak is, you know, really quite a feat.
Wow.
So
that's great.
Yeah.
I'm going to try something. Robbie, just hold where you are, and I will maybe try and turn this so you can see the three-dimensionality of what this thing is like. When you have it hanging on a wall, you can start out basically in the valley area and then move up and you can then see kind of what is not necessarily on the other side, but what the top of that particular mountain range does. I can't say and praise enough of the work that you've done, Gary, on putting these things together.
Yeah, and
it's majestic.
This Granite Peak is one of the exceptions. I could not do it from a common roadway. There is no common roadway. So this is actually from a photo taken from the backside of Mount Wood. So Mount Wood is spectacular in its own right, and is the second highest, but it's the perfect vantage point for the tallest mountain in Montana.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know from being down here, and you from being down here, draw some comparisons between the mountains in the east of the divide, and then like Glacier Park and some of them that are west of the divide.
The Beartooth front and the Beartooth-Absaroka complex put together has 60 of the 100 highest mountains in Montana. So even though you think of Glacier Park having the tallest mountains, they are not even close. Down here in the south, I don't know if it's because the ice hasn't chewed on them as much, but they are the tallest mountains in Montana. So by far. And in fact, that complex, the Beartooth-Absaroka Wilderness Area, is the largest landmass above 10,000 feet in the United States. So it's big. It's huge. Yeah.
Factoid there. Thank you.
Yeah. And those peaks rise up off of those plateaus is what happens. So there's a huge shelf, and that was probably where the ice sheet was, and then those little peaks stood up above that ice sheet and were hammered by the glaciers,
yeah,
the freeze and thaw, and so they're what's left. Another interesting fact is in almost every mountain range in Montana, the tallest peak in that range is in the southern part of that range. And I'm pretty sure it's because it got chewed on less because the north, the weather, the ice sheet came from the north. And so that, even true in mountains up in, like the Mission Mountains. So McDonald Peak, which is actually my other piece.
Okay.
So this is a close-up of, I don't know how we're going to do that. This is a close-up of McDonald Peak, which is this guy, which is the tallest in the range and is the farthest south. There are a few that are farther south, but not as many as there are north. And then this is Mount Caloocan, which the Blackfeet just renamed. So we're calling it Caloocan now. That is these mountains are the only wilderness area in the United States that's on reservation land. So
really?
Yeah, so the Salish did a really good job of offering those, and you have to get a permit to travel in there, to hike in there and stuff, but they changed the name because they're taking it back to their native language.
Now, if we can go back to that shot for a quick minute, the vantage point that you're looking at the mountains from would be over by Pablo.
Yeah, Nine Pipes Reservoir.
Nine Pipe Reservoir.
Yeah.
If you, in your mind's eye, can think of going north out of Missoula, and you drop over the top of that little hill between Arlee and then the Flathead Valley, I would call it, and then look off to the right, that is magnificent. And as a point along with it, back in the days where some of you recognize the Retta Mary, which was a big old tugboat they had converted to kind of a tourist thing, used to go from Polson up to Big Fork and then come back as a kind of a day trip. They'd take you up to Big Fork and you'd go to the play, and then you'd get on, and always try and do it when the moon is coming up full. And it comes up on the backside of those missions and then just cuts a stripe right across the lake. It's
spectacular.
fantastic. Yeah.
I've actually been moved to tears. I made a big swing through Glacier Park. It was a day where the weatherman said on the news said there was not a cloud in the entire western United States, and I went, I gotta go. I told my wife I'm going to bed right now. It was like 7:00 p.m. because I had to get up at 1 o'clock, and I made a swing through all the mountains from Glacier on and taking pictures. And I closed my day out on the Mission Range with the, what do they call the red, the
glow.
Yeah, that red glow. Oh my gosh, it was so beautiful that I just kind of had a tear run down my eyes. Those mountains are really beautiful.
Oh,
yeah,
excellent,
spectacular.
Yeah. So, other things that you have, let's maybe take a look at some of the drawings that you have in.
Well, here's the first one I want to start with, because I talked about the bear tooth. This is actually the small picture of the bear tooth front that I did that's in the museum, or was in the museum, in the Bear Tooth Museum, and is now in the Bear Tooth Grill. But it's 16.5 feet long, and it has all of the peaks in it. So there is Mount Wood that I was talking about that always appears taller, and back here is Granite Peak. And I even made Granite Peak a little bit higher. I took artistic license to put it in there than it really is in real life. But all of these peaks are accurate, and you can look in the glove box guide and see the names of them if you so desire.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the first one.
Yeah. What else have you got in your magic box here?
Oh, I have lots of them. Let's see. This is actually a picture of, you can't even see Granite Peak, but this is the view that you get from Billings. That is Mount Wood, the second tallest mountain, coming down to East Rosebud over here. So East Rosebud is right in there, down in there.
Okay.
And this is the same mountain. So that's Mount Wood again, and that's from Columbus. So that gives you an idea of it. Does the perspective does change on mountains, but if in the glove box guide I give you the name of the mountain, and then you can keep your eye on it and follow it on the highway, because the perspective does change, and it will change quite a bit sometimes. Mount Wood looks the same pretty much until you get to Big Timber, and then it's actually more spectacular. Let's see, and we already saw Granite. The Bear's Tooth. This is what I call a cameo, so a close-up of it. That's Granite, that's Bear Tooth Mountain here, and then the Bear's Tooth and Thunder Mountain in the background. And this view is from the top of the Bear Tooth Highway. So, So, and that's also the, Bear Tooth. So, as you're going towards Big Timber, or Livingston from Big Timber, you get your first view of the Bridger Mountains, the tallest mountain. And I try and take the picture so that the tallest mountain appears that way. So it doesn't always appear that way, but I'm trying to help the viewer learn them. So that's Sacagawea Peak, which is also a kind of a double hump there. So that's and that's getting closer. And then of course, a lot of people, their favorite view is their favorite mountains are the Crazy Mountains, and was the case for me. I grew up working on a ranch in the summers, and I got up every morning and went out and got the cows, and that was my view. So this is actually 6 feet long and is on display at the Crazy Mountain Museum in Big Timber. So
And this, we're looking from the Shields Valley east?
This is actually from the interstate again. You can see this view from the interstate. So just past Reed Point, you get those trees in the foreground, and on the other side of that is the Shields Valley. So But yeah, the Shields Valley is at the base of the Crazies. And that's where my folks are both from. I grew up in that
neck of the woods.
In Clyde Park, Montana.
Let's jump to your show. You've got to pull that up.
Yeah.
Let's hold that up and talk about what you're going to be doing.
Okay, so right now I have a show at Copper Village in Anaconda, and it's the biggest show I've had. I've had about probably 8 or 9 shows with all of my artwork. This has every piece I've ever done, and it's on display there in their museum. It's called Copper Village Art Center and Museum, and it runs from now until the end of August, and the hours are 10 to 4 every day, Tuesday through Saturday. So, and if you go to my show, you will have that sensation that I've heard people say is, it's like you can, in a spin, a 360 spin, you can actually take a tour of all the mountains in Montana in one room. Yeah. So. And
it's free.
Yeah, and it's free. Yeah.
Wow.
Definitely free. Yeah. So, go to my show for sure.
I would definitely do that. The glove box guide, let's talk, how can people have access to that?
They're for sale at the base camp right now.
Okay.
So here in Billings, or in Helena at the base camp, they are for sale. I can sell them to you. I'm still in the process of distributing them, finding distributors. So if anyone thinks they want one, you can contact me. And they're also available at like Murdoch's all over the state. And I don't know how much I'm supposed to plug.
That's all right.
Yeah,
No. Tell them where they can get them.
I do not have a website because I am having trouble with the 3D part. So until I can get the 3D to show up on the internet, they look like photos of the mountains, and people don't understand why this photo would cost $1,000. But in reality, I'm working on that, but I am not having a lot of success with that.
That technology will come.
And,
all of a sudden, you'll have a set of glasses.
I don't know what it's going to take. I've had a few people say they could, but they couldn't deliver. So, I'm working on it.
You and I are that generation where you go, what's that?
It's magic. It's magic to me.
All the way around.
Yeah, definitely.
All the way around.
Yeah.
Well, Gary, I want to thank you very much for coming and sharing kind of your life's work, I would say, in this with all of us. And we hope to have you back again if you do some more, or we'll just take a look at more of it as it comes down the pike. And folks, I want to thank you for joining us on this rendition of Our Montana's look at Montana and all of the mountains that are in the state that we have as far as the 360-degree turn. And if you have interest in Gary's glove box guide, you can get a hold of us also at Our Montana, and we'll be excited to share all of that with you. So until we meet again, happy trails. Thanks, Gary.
You're welcome.
That was wonderful.